WeOmaha News on KPAO.
Hello, welcome to WeOmaha News. My name is Deshaun Cunningham.
And I'm Kitrin Zeichel. Last week we talked about bike transit and trails.
Today we are discussing Omaha's transportation needs. As the city of Omaha nears 500,000 proper, with 1.3 million people in the 8-county metro area, Omaha's streets will continue to face greater levels of congestion.
Omaha is fortunate to have relatively short commute times. In a 2013 study by the city, 85% of working Omahans had a commute time of half an hour or less. But as the city continues to grow, how will this change?
To learn more about Omaha's future transportation plans, we spoke with directors at Metro Area Planning Agency, or MAPA for short, to discuss the logistics behind future transportation needs in the city.
I'm Greg Ewell, Greggyouell, and I'm the Executive Director at MAPA.
I'm Mike Falchow, Felschhow. I'm the Program Director at MAPA.
Now, Metro Area Planning Agency, kind of give people a broad overview of what do you guys work on here. I think a lot of people maybe associate you guys with buses, but maybe don't understand all the finer parts. So what gets done in a day at MAPA?
Okay. So MAPA is what's called the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the Regional Council of Governments. And that means we're working with cities and counties throughout the entire Omaha Council Bluffs metro area. And so we work with them, first of all, in transportation planning. So we right now have our long-range transportation plan going on that we'll probably be talking about. And then we also assist the cities and counties with different projects that they like to do. So if they are, maybe working on a comprehensive plan update or looking at zoning, if there's a need to upgrade their water or sewer system, sometimes MAPA will help the smaller communities in particular with doing those grants and doing those projects. And really we're here to try and coordinate things across the entire region. Not just looking at a particular city or county, but to take that big picture look at the entire metro area and work across jurisdictional boundaries.
You guys are working on the Heartland 2050 initiative. Explain what that is to people that aren't familiar with 2050.
Okay. Heartland 2050 it was a planning initiative to look at big picture, long-range future for the entire metro area, and that actually covers the entire 8-county Omaha Council Bluffs area. So that's 5 counties in Nebraska and 3 counties in Iowa. And it's looking at how do we grow in the future, how do we develop, what are our goals and initiatives that we really need to work on. And as part of that, we looked at the need for regional collaboration because we're competing as a metro area, not just cities, Omaha versus Council Bluffs versus Sarpy County, but we're really competing as a metro area to try and attract people here and attract companies here. We're also trying to really focus in on having a quality growth strategy for housing and for transportation. We know that's a big part of the cost of living here. And one of the things we heard people like about this area is that there's a low cost of living. But if we can improve our housing and transportation and how that's related to jobs, that will improve the quality of life here. And then lastly, we did see that although we don't have, as a whole, people think that this is a great place to live in and we have a high quality of life. We also know that we have some real challenges, some issues with educational attainment, trying to make sure that everybody's enjoying the prosperity. So I think that's another thing that our study showed is that as we grow in the future, as we become increasingly diverse, that it's going to be really important that everybody's a part of that prosperity in the future. So that's one of the things that we're really trying to focus on with Heartland 2050.
When you talk about attracting people, what are some of your guys' most successful ways to, is it the schools, is it the homes? What do you find is the biggest factor in competing against a peer city like a Oklahoma City or a Kansas City? Mm-hmm. Like, what does it come down to? Is it state benefits? Is it just having a long-term plan where other people may not plan to include everyone, like you mentioned, having everyone involved in the process? So I guess the question would be, what are your most successful ways that you find to recruit people to Omaha?
Well, I'm not an economic developer myself, so I'm not involved directly with recruiting businesses. But I think what I've heard is that you need to know as a community who you are and try and do that well. So don't try and be something that you're not. We're not going to be Silicon Valley. But what are the things that we can focus on here? So we know we have, obviously we live in a highly agricultural area, and so the Chamber of Commerce has a Prosper Omaha plan that focuses on value-added agriculture as a key cluster of employment we're trying to recruit here. Also looking at defense with our Offutt Air Force Base and things like that. And then of course our finance and insurance is a big part of that. And then I think there's also a lot of growth right now around entrepreneurship, IT, and innovation that this area can really become a hotbed for, and kind of is to a small degree, but could expand that in the future. So I think focusing on those clusters of employment that you're really good at, and then really looking down the pipeline and how do we make sure that there's a good match between the education so that you have the workforce to be able to fill those jobs. And I know that's what a lot of the community colleges and high schools are working on, but that's something that we really need to do better at to make sure that we have the people able to fill the jobs that are going to be here.
So how can people become more involved in the 2050 plan?
They can go to the website, heartland2050.org, and we have a number of committees that are working around different topic areas such as infrastructure or education, things like that. And so there are meetings there where people can get involved. Also just continue to watch the website and see what's coming out, because those committees are working on action lists of things that will be going forward. And then we have a summit twice a year. So we just had one in February, and the next one will be in late July. So twice a year we have a summit, and that's an opportunity for all of the folks that work on the committees to come report out on what they're doing, and then to kind of celebrate the vision and help keep that top of mind as far as what are the big goals, what are we trying to do as a metro area.
Now, when it comes to road traffic, do you guys do mostly interstate planning at all, or do you do just city streets, or how do you tie those together?
We're looking at the comprehensive system. So we do look at the state highway system and work with both of the states of Nebraska and Iowa on those. And then we also look at the city streets as well. So it was really a comprehensive look at the entire transportation system. So that include all modes of transportation. So also looking at mass transit, bicycle and pedestrian options, trails, and things like that as well.
Now, what is the overall transportation plan for Omaha? Because I know there's been talk for probably going on at least 10 years now about putting in things like light rail and, you know, even longer term ideas of connecting something like that with a system in Lincoln. Where are we at now in Omaha's transportation plan? Are we any closer to getting something like a downtown rail, or, you know, or how would that fit into?
Well, I guess one thing on mass transit is right now the Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT project, is moving forward. And if you're familiar with that, that is almost like a rail system. You purchase your tickets off the bus. It has platforms. They'll have real-time countdown at each of the stations. So it kind of has that rail feel. And this would run from downtown out to Crossroads. And that project is moving forward. It's working through the design process right now that Metro Transit, in coordination with the City of Omaha, are working on. And the current estimated date for that is fall of 2018 when that would actually open. So that'll be a big step forward for our mass transit system.
Now, has this been modeled off of any other regional cities' plans? I know you mentioned that we'd get the countdowns on the buses. Lincoln has this currently in their downtown area. So how soon would the bus shelters be updated in this scenario?
I think everything's scheduled to open in that fall of 2018 date, to my knowledge. But you know, all the stations, all that's something that's being coordinated, and they're trying to work potentially with some you know, foundations and private donors and things like that to get all the money. So that's involved in terms of the timing of it. But yeah, there's a lot of other cities that have found BRT to be a good way to really upgrade your transit service, but it doesn't come with the cost of a full-blown rail system, which usually costs hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a great way to provide some of that additional premium service, but doesn't quite have the price tag that might have. Kansas City started a bus rapid transit line that runs from downtown down to the Country Club Plaza about 10 years ago. It's been pretty successful in it's seen increased ridership, higher frequencies, so people, instead of having to wait 20 or 30 minutes for the bus, it might come every 5 or 10 minutes. And so it makes it a lot more usable for people.
Okay. Now, another concern is, since Omaha is growing, How does sprawl affect your guys' job when it comes to planning? Do you try to work with developers to encourage density in developments, or is that outside of MAPA's scope?
So what we do is we work with the cities and counties, and MAPA does not have any land use authority. Okay, that's all up to the individual cities as far as what developments they want to approve. I think one of the things that we have always had as a goal is trying to make sure that development is well planned and done efficiently. And City of Omaha, even though there's been tremendous westward growth, it's actually pretty contiguous growth. It's fairly compact compared to a lot of cities. So that's been something that's been good, and we've been able to do that because of the sewer systems that we have. Right now, one of the projects that we've been working on with Sarpy County is looking at the sewer system down in Sarpy County, and that's an area where south of the southern part of the county, there's a ridge line there is no sewer with the exception of Springfield in the southern part of the county. And so as growth continues out there, it's really important that that is well planned and that the sewer system is well thought out so that we don't have tremendous urban sprawl. If you don't have a sewer system in there, you could end up filling it all up with large lot acreage development, which would be bad from a tax base point of view and from a urban sprawl point of view. So MAPA's in the background. We're not making any land use decisions, but we do work with the cities and counties to try and promote good principles of well-planned and efficient growth.
Do you guys have a rough idea, like how many commuters are there on an average in Omaha?
Do you know what our VMT just showed, what the number was?
We're about 18 million vehicle miles traveled every day. So.
Is that pretty standard for a city the size of Omaha?
Yes.
Okay. What are your environmental considerations as far as from a planning aspect? What goes into that?
Okay. Well, I think the chief thing we've been following here at MAPA is the concern about ground level ozone. We are pretty close to the air quality standard, which is the limit that we can have to be considered a clean air quality status. And most folks think, oh, the Omaha metro area doesn't have any air quality problems. And most days we don't, but there are certain days in the summer where our air quality does get pretty bad with ground level ozone, particularly on the hot summer days. And if we have enough of those, then we can actually, our status as an area can go into non-attainment, which is the lingo for basically meaning you're in violation with those air quality standards. And that would have impacts for our area trying to attract business here. It'd have new regulations in terms of when we want to build transportation projects. And then most importantly, it means that the air quality is not that good. So seniors or children, folks with respiratory issues, it can be harder for them to breathe on those days. So that's something we're following very closely. And so as part of that, we are MAP is coordinating this project called Little Steps, Big Impact. And it talks about all the different things people can do to reduce their emissions, to reduce that impact on the air quality. And so we take a look at that, and we're part of our goals as a long-range transportation plan are what are things we can do to reduce our emissions, be that the ozone forming emissions, and then carbon dioxide as well. So trying to look at how can we, as a community, what are the different things we can do. We're also working on an electric vehicle infrastructure project with some of the different municipalities to put in more charging stations around, as some people are starting to purchase electric vehicles and use those as another form to get around. And the fuel's changing. Not only we have electric vehicles, but also obviously have ethanol and biodiesel and things like that. So
it's all about having options.
Yeah, there's a lot of options out there, and we promote all of those things.
I was going to just add on to what Greg was saying about the little steps, big impact, and it's the little things. What we're trying to do is ask people to do a little thing, and those little things all add up to really help us reducing the pollutants that are in our atmosphere. And many times you can't see it. Ground level ozone, you can't see it, you can't smell it, but it's all over.
So ground level ozone is when some of the emissions that come either out of vehicles or solvents or all different industries that release the VOx and NOx or the different compounds. But anyway, emissions go up in the air, and then the sun heats that up, and it creates ground level ozone. So if you heard about the ozone way up in the sky and the hole in the ozone, that's good. It's not the same thing. This is down near the ground, And so it is irritating to people with respiratory issues. It can be harmful for children, seniors, and others with vulnerable respiratory issues. So and there's monitors around the metro area that keep track of what our ozone levels are. The primary sources would be transportation and industry. Mm-hmm.
Omaha going forward, what do you see as some of the obstacles to having a cohesive transit plan? Is it geographical issues? Is it neighborhood issues? What are some of the things that are hard, that make logistics planning hard? And not, I don't mean like politically hard, like they take more time to get done.
No, that's a pretty good question. It's actually a very difficult question. Planners all over the country are always trying to come up with the solution. One of the things that one of our biggest conversations is the autonomous vehicle. What is that? How is that going to change the way people commute, how they're going to move around our community? So it's technology. Obviously, the cell phone changed the way we communicate. What we're hearing from many experts is that it's going to change, autonomous vehicles are going to change the way we live and work our daily lives. So that's going to be a big impact, and how that impacts transit, no one really knows yet. So what we're trying to do is make sure that all the community entities that are involved in MAPA are working together to make a flexible transportation system that includes roads, bikes, ped, and transit, to make sure that it can maneuver however the millennials decide to buy houses or stay in downtown, or ever how the technology evolves. And that technology, not only the autonomous vehicle, but also how traffic lights are becoming smarter and smarter. So we have to really look at how all that's going to work out into the future. And the best way we can do that is constant communication between not only our member entities, but with the public, and trying to build the most flexible transportation system now and into the future, so it can handle and help alleviate any of the congestion issues that we have out there, and address the future issues as they come up.
Now, would part of that strategy being to decrease car transit and increase alternatives, or is it at some point, like you said, there's external factors that make it just between accommodating the car traffic because people choose to keep driving?
It's all those things. We can't just say everyone's going to move over to transit or bike or ped. We have to realize there's a balance in our transportation system, and that's what we try to do all the time, is balance those things together. So we always have to look at where the cars are going to be in the future, and realize that people are still going to drive. They may not drive to work, but they're going to drive on their other trips. There are many communities where there's what they call a mode split, where people will go to a park and ride lot, pick up a BRT, let's say, and drive and go to work in a downtown area, like our downtown, spend the day there, and then go out, pick up their car, and go home. And on their way home, they pick up they pick up some bread or on their way home. So that's a multiple trip, but all within one trip, and we have to accommodate that kind of trip. That is probably a pretty strong way that people are going to probably move around our community in the future, is splitting their modes up. Many people nowadays take the bike to the bus, get their bike on the bus, and then the rest of the way. So connecting bike lanes and side paths of bike facilities to transit is another way we can extend the reach of transit. So it's not just one mode against another mode. We try to look at modes in cooperation with each other, running from metropolitan areas to the smaller areas to the neighborhoods, looking at transportation in all scales, the neighborhood scale, the local scale, and the regional scale. So that's how we try to work with all our member entities in order to make sure we're all going in the right direction, same direction.
For more information on upcoming transit plans for Omaha, visit the WeOmaha News Facebook page for a look at MAPA's 2050 initiative.
And that concludes our broadcast this week. Join us next time for another episode of WeOmaha News. My name is Deshaun Cunningham.
And I'm Kitrin Zeichel.
Thanks for watching.
See you next week.
This has been WeOmaha News.